Hello, my name is Nathan Nelson, and I am a sales engineer for SUSE. I've been with the company for 4 years now and based out of Provo, Utah. I've been in IT for over 20 years, systems administrator for over 10 years, and then I moved into the sales engineering world about 4 years ago when I started with SUSE. I'm married, been married for over 20 years. I've got twin daughters, another daughter, a son, so relatively large family. Um, my favorite thing about living in Utah is being able to run the trails out here. Just beautiful area. And I spend a lot of time at night playing around with home automation. So that's a little bit about me. Today, we're going to be talking about a few different things, all revolving around support config. We're going to cover what support config is. We'll talk about how to use support config, what we can do with the support config output that we receive after running support config. I'll demo a little bit of this so you can kind of see how it works, what it looks like in action, and then I'll sum it up and we'll do a little bit of a call to action, talk about what we can do with the knowledge that we've got from this. So before I start, I want to mention the two places that I got information for this topic. First and foremost, Jason Record, who has had a very close relationship with support config. He's worked very hard on it. He's been a contributor and he's been very helpful to me personally as a resource as I've had questions about support config. But secondly, and maybe more important for all of us, is the documentation that is out there for support config. It is very good. It's very clear and it's not too long. So I was able to use the documentation pretty much to do anything that I was trying to get set up for this presentation. Okay, so jumping in. What is support config? Support config comes from the support utils package, and that support utils package contains a set of scripts that reduce problem resolution time. That's the whole purpose to the support utils package, is if it revolves around troubleshooting and closing down resolution time. Support utils, well, support config specifically, has been around since SUSE Linux Enterprise Server 8. I think that was the beginning of it. I don't know of any record that goes previous to that. So it's been around a long time. The way that it works is a customer might have an issue on a server running SUSE Linux Enterprise Server. It could be a networking issue. It could be partitioning questions or problems. It could be anything really revolving around the server. So before they call support, they might run a support config command on their server, or it could be that support asks them to run this. Support config will return relevant system information on that machine or on that server. It'll give information as to whether a kernel is supported or not. It'll talk about the kernel version that is running, and then it'll show what third-party packages are installed on that machine. It'll give some information about hardware. It'll give information about partitioning, and it can be run both in the GUI as well as CLI. Either way, the result is you get a file that you can upload to global technical support, or you can analyze yourself to get an idea of what you're dealing with on a troubled machine. So the whole point to support config is to help identify problems and help close in that resolution time. Okay, I want to show you how to create a service request number. So before you call into support and before you run your support config, it's advisable to go ahead and to have a service request number. So the way that you do that is I'm going to grab this URL. So we're going to the SCC, so scc.suse.com/support/requests. So we come in here And here's our little interface for creating new tickets. You can see I have a test ticket in right now, but I'm going to go ahead and click Open New Case, and then I select my organization. I select the entitlement, and then I select my product. So here, so I'm going to go ahead and choose my product, which is SUSE Linux Enterprise Server 15 SP3. So now that I have that, I can title my case. Partitioning, partitioning an issue. Please contact. Now this is an awful way to submit a ticket, but I just want to show you sort of what it looks like and how it's going to connect into our support config. So I'm going to click on Open Case, and then I am given a support case number. So I'm going to grab this thing, and once I have this number, I am now prepared to attach a support config archive to a current support case. So I will show you how to do that. Okay, so a moment ago, I showed you how to create a service request number. And right now, what I want to do is to show you how that will come into play as you run support config from command line. So first off, I am logged in as root, and I am now ready to run support config. So I type in support config, and because I want to associate the service request number with this support config run, I'm going to go ahead and do the -R, and then I'm putting in the case number that was assigned to me when I opened it up in the browser a second ago when I created the service request. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And now what it's going to do is it is going to go and gather a whole bunch of information on the afflicted server. It's going to take a look at the basic health. It's going to look for memory details. It's going to take a look at the partitioning and all different kinds of things so that it can determine what is healthy and what is not healthy. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let this run. And when it completes, we're going to come back and we'll talk a little bit about what we are seeing. Okay, so now support config has completed. It's dropped output over here into var log. But if you take a look, the SR number here, the service request number is identical to the service request number that we ran with support config. And what that means is that that service request number is now associated with the support config tool that we just ran. So let's take a look. And I already ran, because it takes a little while, but I ran a moment ago a support config-F. And what it does is it will list for us all of the different options that support config has access to. And it'll show us every single one of them. And there are quite a few of them. But if we want to turn those on or off, we can do that by typing something like support config-F, or excuse me, support config-O, and then the option, like for instance here, audit. Now a -O will actually turn off the audit report, and it will skip it and add it to this little skipped section as support config runs. If we want to see what is turned on or off currently, we can actually go to supportconfig.conf. And we can see here all those same options in that list, but next to them, there's either a 1 or a 0. So kind of like a binary situation here. So we can see that AppArmor has a 1, so it's turned on, and others have zeros, they're turned off or skipped. Now, So you can do this in one of two ways. You can do it the first way that I showed you, which is to do a -O and then the option name, and that will turn it on or off. Or you can just simply jump into supportconfig.conf and flip the number from a 1 to a 0 or a 0 to a 1. If you run a support config -C, it will just create a new support config with all of the options turned on. So that's sort of how the turning on and off of these different reporting items works. If you want them on, it's a 1. If you want them off, it's a 0. It does take a little while to run the -O and option, and so I prefer just to jump into supportconfig.conf and take care of multiple items all at the same time. Okay, so we've completed running support config on a server that may or may not be healthy in order to diagnose and help support figure out what is going on so that they can help us troubleshoot and resolve this issue more quickly. So if you take a look, we have run support config over here. It's gone through and diagnosed all the different options that we've asked it to and skipped the ones we've asked it to not look at. And it has dumped itself into a nice little TXZ file along with the service request number embedded. So we know that it is ready to be analyzed by support. So the question now is, well, what does it look like when support receives this file and what do they do with it? Let me show you. So this is what a support config analysis report looks like. It's pretty clean. It's just a little HTML report, but it's a very nice view of what is going on the server that we ran support config on. We can see our analysis date. We know when it was run. It again gives us the file name that it's using to show us this report. Server name, distribution that we're running. Yep, that's our SLES 15 SP3. Shows us service pack. Gives us all the information that's critical for us to diagnose this server. Here we can see the conditions that are evaluated as critical, and we don't have any underneath, but we do have a little message for a warning, which is indicated by a yellow box. So if I click on this one warning SLE message, it gives us this message: the rsyslog package is missing, system login is disabled. Okay, so that's a little bit of information that we can take. We click on it, and then we are brought over to a nice little support document, a little knowledge-based support document that we can go and investigate and learn a little bit more about what is going on with the warning that we were shown. A little bit further on, we can also see what was evaluated as a success. Now, this is a very basic support config that we have run, but still we can see that there are 8 basic health messages. It tells us a little bit about the kernel, tells us about the CPU utilization, disk, again, some memory use, 0, there's no swapping, so looking pretty good, which it should. This box is not doing anything right now. So this is what it looks like when support is taking a look. So they can take this information, get an idea of what is going on with your server, and they can evaluate it, and they can help you to resolve the issue that you're having. Likewise, you can look at this yourself. There is a tool that you can install on one of your boxes if you wanted to take a look at this as well and look at the report. But in the context of this session, this is what support looks at, so that they can take the output of support config and get you a resolution quickly. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you've learned a little bit more about support config. I know I have. And if I were to sum this up, I would just say that this is probably a tool that's not used a whole lot. And it's a very helpful tool. So I would suggest that when our customers or the people who are running SUSE Linux Enterprise Server start running into problems, yes, call for support, but also consider running support config so that you have a little bit of additional information that you can hand over to support to help them resolve the issue that you're dealing with. All right, thanks for watching, and hope you guys have a great rest of your SUSECON.